Welcome back to the Culture Clash Comedy Podcast. I am Shafi from the East.
And I'm Dan from the West.
And today we have a very special guest. Oh my God. Every girl I've ever dated loves this guy. They're like, do you know Jared? I'm like, yeah, I do. He just had a Netflix special out. I'm so excited to have him on. Jared Freid, everybody.
Yeah.
Clap
Great
it
to
up,
be
baby.
here.
Clap
Thank you so
it
much.
up.
Thank you, Jared
for-
from the West Village. That's
Yeah,
me.
from
There you go.
Is that what people call you from the West Village?
That's what everyone calls me.
Really?
now.
Yeah.
Not from the subway. Is that
Not
the
from
bit?
the Yeah, I know. That's kind of not where
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking to go with my career.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a girl once randomly. She was like, "Oh, she was from Massachusetts, and she's
Yep.
like, oh yeah, I know the Freids. They used to go to the country club I worked at.
Oh yeah.
Did you go to the country club?
Of
in
course.
Mass? Yeah. What did you
Yeah.
do? Tell us about.
You
Wow,
go-
how was
oh,
that?
my-
How was growing up at a country club like?
Growing up there, well, we didn't
Yeah.
live there. We had
Oh.
our home, and then our beach home, and
Yeah.
then the other home in the mountains. And,
Yeah.
Mountain home.
You know,
nice.
we have 7 homes. If you belong to a country club, you must have 12 homes.
That's so
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, my family belonged to a club, and my dad golfs a lot.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And so then we would go hang at the pool. That was like what we would do, and
Sure.
And then you try I once in a while go out and golf with my dad, and we'd yell at each other.
Are you
and
good at
then-
golf?
No, I'm trying to learn it now. I'm trying to
Now?
get into it now.
yeah, same. It's a tough
Why?
time.
It's
all the
because it's
terrible
been
habits you
fun.
have.
Yeah, you have
You
terrible
enjoy it.
habits.
Yeah.
It's just nice to be outside. It's a great road activity when you go on the
Sure.
road. You get
Yeah.
to kind of get outside and in a way
100%.
that's not like
Be in nature
running
somewhat.
and hiking. You're just like it's a slow pace of life.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
What
I
about
like
mini
it.
golf? Do you enjoy that?
I'm okay with that. That
Yeah.
would be a good date night. But I'm not
Sure.
like running mini golf place to mini golf place.
Yeah, I'm a big mini golf guy.
Yeah?
Love a mini golf.
Have you ever done the regular golf?
I have. I mean, my college. I had a friend in college. She had like a driving range. Like her
Oh, yeah.
parents owned one, so I'd just go there and play for free. And I was so bad. It was embarrassing. I couldn't impress her dad.
Well, I'm in
ever.
Bangladesh. What premium do they put on golf in the hierarchy?
Oh
of-
yeah, you gotta be in the like top 1% to even like consider the idea of playing golf.
Yeah.
So what I would do, we would make golf by like creating a hole and then have a tennis, which we play cricket. So you
Yeah.
use a cricket bat and a tennis ball, and then we would golf.
Yeah.
But it was like a makeshift golf.
Sounds like similar.
It's like a
upbringing.
poor
Yeah.
people's golf. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a country club. Poor people
Making a hole in
Yeah,
Bangladesh.
that's what I did to make play golf. But so country club, Massachusetts. Were you surrounded by a lot of Jewish people? Was it because
It
you're
was a Jewish country club.
Oh, it was
Oh,
Jewish.
wow.
Mostly Jews were at
Oh.
the country club because
Shut up.
That's
Massa-
right.
So in Mass, are you from Massachusetts?
I'm from outside of Boston.
Is there like a lot of Jewish community there?
Nothing's like New York.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
New York
so you're
is
like kind of
there's
outsiders.
there's a community everywhere.
Sure.
You know, but they all usually live in a certain town or certain area together. Most
Yeah.
Jews. You
Yeah.
know, like my mom's from Detroit.
Wow.
Like her
How did she end up there?
she went to school in Boston and then like was working at wanted to be in Boston. It's one of those things. My mom, if you ever met her, she's like the least Midwest woman ever. She's
Yeah.
not like reserved and quiet. She's
Okay.
like, if you met her, you'd be like, that is a New York Northeast wild woman.
But isn't like, okay, I don't know a lot about this. So tell me if I'm like coming off as very ignorant. But like Jewish women, they're usually like outgoing and upbeat and vocal. Is that like a wrong?
we have all flavors of woman, but I would say that like Jewish mother.
Yes, that's
is
what I was
ve-
thinking.
The trope is like they're on top of you. They're
Sure.
very involved.
Yeah.
especially with Jewish sons. The
And
relationship
is it
between
similar
mother and
with
son.
you as
I
well?
would absolutely.
Yeah.
They're all over you. My mom's a character. She
Yeah,
walks in and she walks into a place like she's Kramer. She's like, "Hi, everybody!" Like there's a like she's
Everyone just
not-
waiting for her to say something.
Right.
Say hi. We're
Right.
waiting.
Yeah.
Another cool fun fact. Jared has this headshot on the cellar wall, which is like a big deal for any comic.
Yeah.
Probably the funniest one I've ever read.
Oh, you read it?
Oh my god,
It's very
probably
long.
the funniest one because you put like the median salary or something, right, of the neighborhood you grew up
Yeah.
in, and it was always your dream to be on the cellar. I just like died laughing.
I always thought I wrote that and I was like, I don't think anyone reads this, but it would be funny if.
Oh,
someone
I read
yeah.
all of them. I
Yeah.
think I just go around reading because I feel like it's like because usually get put on the spot. you're like, oh, you have to write. You don't like prepare it for like a week, and they're like, oh, I'm
Right.
gonna write this, witty thing. You're like, oh, this is your headshot, sign it, and
Yeah.
and you have to like sit down, like you're on the clock. You're like, shit, what should I write? That's
Can't
like
try too hard.
it's
You
gonna
can't,
be
like-
Right.
eternal. It's gonna
Yeah.
be always on the wall of the cellar, which is like a hard thing. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
so many great comedians are there, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna write something funny, and you're like, God, I don't know what to. But I thought yours was so unique.
The
and
beauty of having hosted at the cellar a lot was that you
Sure.
have a lot of time to waste.
Contemplate,
To
yeah.
contemplate what I'll write. Like someone, you're right, because someone usually gets their, hey, sign it. We're gonna put it on the wall, and they're
Sure.
like, I gotta go do my spot. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll come up between the
Yeah.
20 minutes between every comic, and I just wrote this thing. Yeah, it was just stupid. Like.
So what's growing up in Massachusetts? A little bit of money. How
a
are
lot of money.
Lot of money.
Shut up. What are you doing?
Little bit of
What
money.
are you
Country
doing?
club money.
Country
Yeah.
club. It's a big deal.
So what's your childhood like? Are they like? Are your parents like? You gotta fucking succeed? Or are they like? Oh, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, what are the pressures at home?
That
like?
wasn't really, the pressure's not. I don't know. I don't really. There wasn't like a dad hanging over me, like making sure I went to violin practice. Like it wasn't like that. I don't know. Simple. Really wasn't a lot of pressure. Now that I think about it, go to college. Both my parents went to college, didn't finish. I was the first generation of my family to go to college. And
Did they choose to drop out because they had like?
it just wasn't really as important as it is today. Today it's more socially important, I think. Like it's more
Yeah.
like an embarrassment.
That's
You
true.
didn't go to college. I think that's kind of where college has gone wrong. If you think
Yeah.
about it, like
Sure.
not everyone's supposed to get a higher education. Maybe you're
Yeah.
supposed to get a trade. Maybe you're supposed to go into a business. Maybe it'd be, I think a lot of millennials kind of learn that, right now they're talking about, paying for people's college. I don't think that's such a bad, giving people money back from their debt. Like, I don't think that's a bad idea considering, you were told go to college. You
Yeah.
will, what were we told that your whole high school career, like if
Yeah.
you, a percentage of millionaires went to college, like 90% of millionaires went to college. And it was like this weird stat that they'd always like hit you with to like, and it's like, why are we trying to convince us?
Yeah.
So for my family, like my family was always family businesses. So like as far as like, we weren't like a bunch of lawyers.
Sure.
It wasn't like a bunch of like doctors in my family. It was a
Yeah.
bunch of salespeople.
What
so,
kind of
like,
businesses did they have?
liquor, beer, and wine, like
That's
wholesale.
perfect. Yeah.
So like it wasn't really. I think there's a certain type that goes towards that, and it's like people that like entrepreneurial, people that are salesy.
How did the Freids get into like liquor business? Was it like a grandpa that started?
My
this?
grandfather was involved in it. They were also
Yeah.
they were just like entrepreneurial people. So they would go,
Sure.
they were also in nursing homes, my family, and doing
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's a diverse portfolio.
Right.
Booze and old people.
you gotta make sure you got both sides of the coin. The
Yeah.
health and the recreation.
Yeah.
So that was all. As far as like, going to college was concerned, it was like the pressures of like,
Yeah.
make sure you're good in math. I
Sure.
don't know. Some people are good at math, some people aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you good at math?
No, I was like,
Yeah.
fine. Like,
And then there's also like, because growing up in Jersey, it was kind of just like, get to college, get to the best college. And then after that it was just such a, oh, you'll get a job.
right. It was a kind of an, of course. Oh, well, and then there was no, especially my age, there was a big thing of like, go to college for the experience.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like an interesting thing to look back on now. I think a lot of Gen Z, like, they're like, kind of like, it's kind of nice for them that they didn't really get that
Yeah.
thing.
Pressure,
Because
yeah.
I went to Penn State because I was like, big football school, it'll be fun.
Oh hell
Yeah,
You know,
and I
it's like-
visited one weekend, and it was maybe the most fun. I went to like a small liberal arts college.
Yeah.
I will remember my weekend at Penn State, like Saturday night, and I'm preaching to the choir. Saturday night, we didn't have the energy to drink.
Yeah, no,
because
Saturday's a
Wednesday
bad
through
night.
Thursday, so Saturday night, nobody in the entire college
Wow.
goes out to drink because they've been boozing since. I mean,
Already-
what Wednesday,
done.
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday was a night. Wednesday was a night.
Yeah.
Everything was a night. Like especially like, and if they lose on Saturday, if like
Oh,
the
that's
football
mayhem,
team, then,
I'm
well, no,
sure.
then it's like, no, you don't want to go out. It's
Right,
like the
we're
party's
sad.
over.
Yeah.
The only thing that energizes you for a Saturday night is a win because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, let's go freak out at a bar. You know?
Sure.
But yeah, Penn State was a blast. Like I loved it, but there wasn't like a thought of like, I was an econ major. I wasn't really thinking like, what am I going to do after? I
Yeah.
thought about it, but it wasn't. Penn State, the bubble of it is so thick.
So when
You
do you
know.
end up starting comedy after college?
I was 25.
Yeah.
So I started later than,
So you're 12 years in the game now.
now
That's
13.
13.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, 25. That sounds like. I mean, so college is 22, and then what are the? I want to know what the years like in between. You've graduated Penn State, kind of like living, pretty much like a movie college experience. Where like every movie is kind of trying to capture something of what Penn State is.
Right.
So what are those? What is that 3-year gap like? Because that'd be.
Well,
Like-
there was a lot of confusion. I sold life insurance and annuities, so like I wanted to just have a job.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You know, you just want to have like worth, and you're like,
Sure.
And also like, you know, if you get out of college not thinking about work and not doing a lot of internships at that time, like, and then you're at Penn State, you can't really like every weekend go to New York and like do an interview. I kind of got to New York and it was like the idea being, I'll go to New York. That's where successful people are. That's where
Yeah.
like
Right.
people who are hustling are.
Yeah.
And that's true for comedy, you know, that ends up being true. But like at the time I was like, I'll just go and I'll kind of figure it out. And I got this job, and, you know, my friends were like all people from high school, people from college, you know, that extended group. And the best part of my day was writing funny emails to friends. Like I would ball bust on the email. Like, what are we doing this weekend? So it was like a lot of like emails that would start on Monday about what are we going to do this weekend, and then ball busting on the email, and then like when someone would write back to me like, oh, that was hilarious, it was like the best part of my day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, how do I do that? And I was like, there was no thought of like, oh, I worship George Carlin. Like that's
Yeah,
not kind of
yeah.
how I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Were you like, when as a kid, your parents let you be very creative? Like, were you like expressive as a child?
No, they no, I was that never was a thought. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like that was like creative. No, it wasn't like
No.
go paint your pictures. It was like
Sure.
you know, like it was just like I don't know. We just like watching sports and yelling at each other and eating. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty simple. I think back and I'm like, man, maybe I should know more. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't. Like my brother and I always talk about, like we don't talk about like family history a lot.
How old
There's
is
no
your
like
brother?
tales. He's 4 years younger, so
4
he's
years younger.
34, and
Yeah.
you know, there's no like, you know, when people talk about like, well, what is your background? Oh, our grandparents moved here from here. We had no discussions of that.
None
That
of
wasn't
that.
even a concern.
Zero.
Yeah.
My bubby, she was from Poland, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like you go, okay.
I mean, that's a big. I mean, if that was my family's history, that they're from Poland, that's all I would talk about.
But that's the
They were
thing.
not-
There was no concern of that. Like to
Sure.
me, like the whole like idea of like, well, you know, like getting a 23andMe for me. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I
Yeah?
really don't have
So
a care for that.
You think your grandpa moved from Poland? Is that
I don't know.
don't
I
know.
couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Like this idea
your
that I
grandpa
have to
is
like.
not around?
My grandfather's passed. All my grandparents passed, but I was close with my grandfather and grandmother.
Yeah.
Like I'm close with my whole family. It just
Sure.
wasn't
Something that you
sit on
talked
my
about.
knee and let's talk about the lineage. Like it just
Yeah.
never really
Yeah.
came up. I think it was like I think that's also like that era of immigrant
Sure.
that was like, especially Jews. I think were just like
bootstrap. Just
like they were just like we're here.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, let's talk
Let's-
about
we don't-
something else. It
let's
just
move,
never
move on.
Right. It was very
Yeah.
much move on. Very much we're not gonna. And my brother and I talk about this all the time. We're like, how do we not know anything?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is really funny.
Yeah.
Did your brother get a different kind of childhood compared to you, or was it similar?
Similar-ish. I mean, 4 years younger. He was in a different, which is nice because you can have your own high school experience. You know,
Yeah.
my brother had his own.
Sure.
My brother's a really good athlete, so he played like a lot of his sports stuff. Like played into his like my family's kind of social stuff
Yeah.
with him. So like, he was a big lacrosse player and like
big lacrosse
I played
player right
that.
big
here.
blacks,
Big
bro.
blacks guy, yeah.
I played lacrosse. I played football, but it was never as good. And he was very good at lacrosse and
Sure.
ended up playing in college and stuff.
Where'd he
Yeah.
go to?
He played at Michigan,
Oh.
and then they were like a club team that went D1.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he played at St. John's for a year. Got the D1 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a job, you
Yeah.
know, and he's very type A and like liked the job of it, I think.
Yeah.
And I would go hang out and be the idiot brother and go hang out and
Is there a better feeling on earth than being brother in the stands watching a brother play?
it's
I
fun.
enjoy because I'm athletic. My two brothers are athletic. My sister not athletic, but actually tailgating like beforehand, being an idiot in the stands.
You like watching your brothers play?
Oh yeah, it was.
Where'd they play?
My brother played football at Gettysburg.
Okay.
My littlest brother played lacrosse at Siena.
Yep.
But like the tailgating, like the social stuff, like, and watching somebody that's related to you play is kind of weird. Like you feel everything like real strongly. It's like you're betting on just one player.
Right, you have skin in the game.
Yeah.
You know, and Siena's like a huge lacrosse school, like
Yeah.
really good. So it's like it matters too, which is cool. You know, like it's fun when you're watching it and you're like, all right, this
We're
is
going
going to make
somewhere.
the night.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Grounded as a kid? Did your parents hit you? Anything like that?
Hit me.
Yeah?
What is
Like
this?
spanking.
The
I
Sad
don't know.
Sack podcast?
I mean,
What is
it
it?
Did have.
I was spanked.
It was beat. They beat that.
Yeah.
crap
Yeah,
out of
I
it
have
back
no
in the day.
Like a
memory
thing.
of this.
Never.
I don't
Grounded.
think so. One time my mom got so mad at me that she like hit me and was just like, and it was like, oh shit, this is on the table.
They fell.
Yeah.
You know, but it was a quick reaction hit,
So
not
Jewish
like a
kids are not
planned-
getting hit. Is that what it is?
I couldn't speak for all Jews. I don't know if it's in the
Sure.
Torah, but I do know.
I feel like it should be somewhere.
Yeah, I do know that that's just not something like to me. My parents, the way they parented was with shame. So it'd be like you'd be like, "Hey, I want to go sleep over someone's house." My parents would be like, "You want to sleep at someone's house?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? In someone else's bed?
So interesting.
You know, like why would you want to go sleep with someone else? What are you, a loser?" Like it was a lot of like,
You have your own bed.
yeah,
Go-
who the
bring
fuck
them
would want to
over.
leave the house?
Bring them
Yeah.
over.
Oh
to
no,
the-
no! They'd even say like, "Oh, can I have some friends over? What you want people here?
That is.
What do you want? Why would you want people in our house? What are you
I
talking about?"
I don't really get the angle. What's the angle of shame there?
Well, the angle is like we don't want people in our house, so we have to like make you think it's not cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm that person. Like I'm like
Sure.
I don't want to sleep over at anyone's house. I don't
Yeah.
want
Okay.
to. I do. You know, if anything, it made us all on the same page. Like
So
you want
if-
to sleep at someone's house? We're not asleep at someone's house.
If you're
family.
dating, when you date, do you sleep over or do they usually come over?
I would usually have them sleep at my place, but
Yeah.
then there's like a Sunday night. I'm like, why don't you get out of here? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to be comfy, cozy. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. So growing up, like that's when does comedy is comedy just like as a defense mechanism for like landing in the real world? Is it just like you get out of college, you do like you realize that you just like doing the funny things? I mean, is work that like do you think you could have been an insurance salesman and been like okay with it?
That wasn't. I was more jealous of the people who seemed like they enjoyed doing that. Like you'd see people like pumped up for a Monday, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not generally like. When I want to do something, I get up to do it.
Yeah.
So like I'm not lazy with things I care about. And when I notice like with comedy is I've never been lazy for anything in comedy, and I enjoy that feeling. Like I think most people with work just want to feel worth from
Sure.
it. Like you want to feel like you've produced something and that you're like good at the thing you're doing. And I think like I was like, I'm not good at this. I don't feel energized by it. And I was more searching for the thing that would energize me. And
Yeah.
like I really got I would always have time to write an email about a friend and making fun of them. You know, and like in a loving, nice, fun way. I always got energy from people enjoying stuff that I put out there. So like I was like, okay, how do I do this the rest of my life? Like, and not really, like I again, like I loved Kevin James Sweat the Small Stuff. That was like a favorite stand-up special of mine. But I never was like, you meet these people that get into comedy and they're like, I've been reading the
Yeah.
book of, Richard Pryor my whole life. And I was like, I don't really have a connection to that.
Sure.
Like I have a connection to like being with my buddies in a fraternity, busting balls, having fun and enjoying people laughing and getting a kick
feedback.
out of it.
Yeah.
Does religion play any role in your like growing up day to day today?
Well, we were, religion's kind of the, Jews have the whole culturally Jewish, that's
Sure.
like a big thing
Sure.
for the Jewish religion. So I think we were like, I am very much the same as a certain generation of person. Like I'm 38, grew up in a suburb outside of a major city, would consider themselves middle class, upper middle class. I'm more a product of a generation,
Yeah.
like I think that, and then you have parents that are from a boon economy generation, really never saw any negative, marks on the calendar, had the greatest run at the casino that any generation has ever had.
In human history.
In human history. Now they have a generation of children
Yeah.
that are kind of trying to keep up with their parents. The first generation is going to do financially worse than their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you have those. So you have and then had to deal with the 2007, 2008
Yeah.
financial collapse. You had 9/11. You have a global pandemic. So you have a generation of people my age that are kind of like a little bit like, jumpy, to say the least. Like the next bad thing is around the corner. So they don't really want to lay groundwork down in any area. They don't want to put their roots down. They don't want to buy a home, not because they can't afford it. I don't believe that. That's an easy thing to say online. More because none of us want to sign up for 30 years of anything.
Yeah,
sure.
We can't even sign up for a dinner order. We want to go to a tapas place. So it's like all of those things combined with a generation above us that's the most confident generation, doesn't see that their experience was any better than the next generation's experience. And we are hard on ourselves, and we kind of live that way. And it's as far as like who could connect to that? Well, anyone around my age. And into that is also Jewish stuff because I have Jewish parents, and that's just, there's a certain archetype, as you say, like the mother yelling at you. And then like we went to a conservative temple. I went to summer camp. All those things like have Jewishness interwoven in the fabric, but it's not like I'm not sitting here saying that I'm like keeping kosher.
Yeah, praying 5 times a day, reading the Torah.
That's not what I'm saying.
You had a bar mitzvah?
I had a bar mitzvah. I went to Hebrew school.
What is it, like Sunday Hebrew school? Is that what it is?
Yeah, you go like after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays in the
morning.
morning.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was like the worst thing that ever happened to me. Like I was like, I hated it.
Sure. Birthright?
Went on Birthright.
Nice.
Great time. Loved it.
And
did all those things.
So like your parents are also similar, like culturally Jewish, or do they have because like it's usually like the second generation is like more religious than the earlier. Is that like a...
No, my mom was, I think, kept kosher growing up. Like really, they were more religious.
Sure.
My dad never. Nothing. They were, there's also your social, the thing is like my dad grew up in a town that was like, the area was in, like, mostly Jewish families. So, okay, the kids go to summer camp. We go to this temple. Like, there's a certain social
aspect
to it. My grandparents, my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was like the president of his temple. Like, he was hyper involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you become the president? Is it
you're like a fundraising position, I think. It's like, it's more to like...
Just make money for the temple.
Make sure you can keep up stuff and, you're kind of like...
Administration
more I think so.
Yeah.
And what about you? When you die, what do you think happens? Do you think about stuff like that, or you're like whatever?
I think about it sometimes. I don't know. I think like especially Jewish religion, I think it's like a lot of their things, when the more you learn about, like you go on Birthright or you go like to temple and they teach you some of the things like in real world ways, a lot of it makes sense what they did. Like a lot of it's like prayer over washing your hands. I was like, okay, how do we get people to wash their hands?
Sure.
That's funny.
That's like kind of interesting to me. Like, if you look at like when Jews die, they have the Shiva call. I think Jews die the best way that there is. Like, there's no better death than a Jewish death. As far as...
Explain that to me.
Well, because when you die, they bury you right away.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
like, very quickly.
There's no
expiration
date. To, like, you
get them in the ground. Then for 5 days, or I think 5 is what I think it is. You set up in one spot, and then people can come to you.
For prayers and
to
stuff.
Just say what's up.
Goodbyes, yeah.
And how many days is that? It's a couple
5
days, right?
days.
Yeah.
5 days.
So what you've done is offer grace to the people that couldn't make it to the funeral. Also grace to the people to go, you got some time to get over there. And an easy situation. There's going to be food. There's going to be a couch. You can kind of put yourself in the side. And the family that's at that Shiva call every day for the 5 days, people are around.
Yeah.
You're not going to be alone. That'd be the worst time to be alone.
Yeah.
Someone in your family died.
Logistically, it's the most forgiving funeral because it's like come for 30 seconds over the course of these 5 days.
Right.
Catholic, it's like the wake is going to be for 5 hours. It's going to be at a place that is not good. Right. It's going to be at a weird funeral home. The body's going to be there.
It's all awkward.
Yeah, the body is I've never looked at a body like open casket Catholic funeral and thought like, that body looks good.
Right. It's all creepy, awkward. I've been to them. You go, and if you don't make it for those 5 hours, what a piece of shit.
Yeah. Just send flowers. Are you kidding me?
It's like I don't know. I think logistically as you go, okay, well, wow, this was really there was thought put into the mental health of the people that had someone leave them.
Because that also gives kind of like space for like grief is gonna hit everybody in a weird fucking way. We'll give everybody 5 days. If you have like a tough 2 hours, go to the bathroom. That's your time. There's no chance of everybody like grief
being
doesn't
sad
hit
at the same time.
Yeah, grief hits everybody kind of like
Yeah.
differently. So I do, in terms of like picking and choosing, I think you're making a good case for like, let's standardize Jewish funerals across like,
I think it's a great idea.
other religions.
I think there should be a Shiva call after breakups for people. I think we should
Yeah,
like
100%.
I think Shiva calls should
Everyone
be
brings you
actually
ice
extended
cream.
into other places of life. I've
Yeah.
thought this for a long time.
Sure.
Like Shiva calls for like when you move somewhere. Okay, 5 nights. We're gonna bring you food because people like sign up for nights to
Yeah.
like do
Yeah.
the dinner. So like,
Right.
oh, this family paid for the dinner on this night. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, wow, that family really came to bat for the
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like
divorce.
divorce Shiva
Yeah.
call,
Yeah.
baby Shiva call, dead dog Shiva
Huge.
call. Yeah, we
Getting
should really-
fired.
Getting fired, Shiva
That's
call. How
huge.
great would that be? 5 nights of dinners with your
Right.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got fired. I'll be at this location.
Yeah. Do you choose?
5
Do you
nights.
choose the destination, or do you can just like be like, I'm gonna go to Hawaii for 5 nights?
Well, then you got to have people. No one's gonna come there. You
Sure.
put people out. That's like a destination
Yeah,
wedding. You're like you really
destination
fucked.
Shiva.
Destinating Shiva.
You
yeah,
really
yeah.
thought of nobody.
Yeah.
I think that defeats the whole,
Yeah.
the
The
whole purpose.
destination shit.
Yeah, I'm like, I really feel sad, and I think
Yeah.
the only way I'll feel better if I'm in Peru for 5 days.
That's
meet you guys in
called a
Hawaii.
vacation.
Yeah.
I like your because it sounds like religiosity. It's kind of, you don't really subscribe to like, your philosophy is just like you are the victim of not victim, but like you're a participant in just macroeconomic forces, like social forces.
Absolutely.
And you think that that's kind of your answer for like a lot of people.
I think that's the thing that you can see. A lot of people don't like to be grouped.
Yeah.
And I can see that there's most people are in that group.
Yeah.
You know, every
100%.
time I'm at a show in Brooklyn, you just see people in the crowd, and they're like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still on my family plan at 38, and you can see like people like their eyes wide and like, oh, who would do that? And you're like,
Yeah.
you.
Everybody.
I'm looking right at the person on the family plan.
Yeah.
Stop saying you're different than me. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're
Yeah,
so
yeah.
hard on ourselves as a generation. We all want to say, you know, and you can see people trying to find this this kind of road that gives them the ability to say that they feel a certain way. So everyone's like looking for the branding opportunity to put on themselves to say, well, can I deserve to be unhappy about some things?
Yeah.
But I had it good. You know,
Sure.
like,
Yes.
you know, just because you had a Power Wheels growing up doesn't mean you can't have problems today.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Because then I also think about you and the content that you put out. It's kind of like I think all of this plays into like the dating realm, right? Like,
Sure.
Because you seem to be somebody who is endlessly fascinated with the ritual of dating, the like the philosophy of dating. Like, what do you think because it doesn't look disingenuous. It looks like genuinely you are like, I feel very strongly about dating.
Well, I think also this goes back to the macroeconomic nature of it, the generational nature of it. We're a generation that doesn't want to fuck up.
Sure.
So, like, what's the biggest way you could fuck up? Oh, marry the wrong person.
Yeah.
Be stuck, again, 30-year mortgage, stuck
Yeah.
in a life
Right.
that you didn't see for yourself.
Sure.
And we see people all the time. We're like, is that where they thought they were going to go? You know, you see it with people that move to Austin. You know, like Austin, people
Oh
who
my
move to
God.
Austin
I
are
was just there last weekend. Hot as hell.
hot as hell, but also they are obsessed with convincing you
That
that
it's a
they
good
made the
idea.
right decision to move
Sure.
to Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very our generation.
Yeah.
You go, why do you care if I can't? I don't care. But they're like, I
right.
can. It's online. I did a whole post
Yeah.
about
Oh,
leaving
God.
my hometown to go to Austin. You must believe this was
Yeah.
a good decision,
Yeah.
you know?
I think-
Buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
You gotta like sell it somehow.
Right.
so
And it's
funny.
like, you know, maybe moving away from your family isn't a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it
We're
is
really
good.
the first generation to even like have the means or like, because air travel is only what, the fucking 70s?
Right. Well,
So moving away is a
yeah.
brand new.
And air travel is like easier now. It's cheaper now. It's more
Yeah.
accessible now. So you're like, and we do this all the time. I did, you know, look at the pandemic. People were like, why would I live in the Northeast? Why would I deal with these winters?
Yeah.
Sure.
I had someone write into my show the other day. They're like, I went back to Boston to visit, and it was like the most beautiful day of the year, and I'm living in Nashville now because I want to get away from the snow.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, now I'm back in Boston being like, did I fuck up? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you go to any city on the wrong day, and it's like the most beautiful day. You're like, I could live in Cleveland, and now you're
Sure.
living in Cleveland. You're like, what the fuck did I do to this
Yeah,
to myself?
yeah.
I can't find a sitter. My parents live in Boston. you know, maybe it wasn't so smart to move away from a block. Maybe our parents were right. Live a block away from your grandparents, and you know,
Yeah.
life is a little easier, a little
Sure.
better.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like what kibbutz in the Jewish
Right,
right?
yeah.
I mean, community is huge. Like you just like I mean, back in the day, everyone was just living in communities, and now we're just like so disfragmented from everything. That like that's why we have like the loneliness epidemic in America.
Yeah.
Everyone is so lonely because
And-
they're just like, we're gonna move to Austin. I'm like, oh, you're just the only one who's gonna be living there.
Austin on your. If you move to Austin to go be on your phone in Austin, maybe you should do it.
Sure,
You should live here.
in
Yeah.
the Northeast.
I love your point about like you have to with social media you do have to justify these decisions.
Right.
Like back in the day, like I remember my dad telling me that he just lived in West Virginia for 2 years to get a master's degree. That's something that you could just kind of go off the grid,
Right.
Do something in a place with like no risks, like come back without your tail between your legs. But now
You can make mistakes.
Yes.
You can make mistakes in the protection of whatever, like in silence, or I don't even know what I'm saying. And
fail in
and
the darkness where nobody sees you.
Right, that type of thing. And you go, there's an element of like, it's good and bad. There's good and bad to everything. Like again, we tape ourselves. We tape ourselves and put it on podcasts and put it out there. And what do we do after you're done taping? You go, did anyone say anything wrong?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, we just taped ourselves having an honest conversation. What do you mean, did anyone say anything wrong? I do this all the time. I tape 30 million podcasts a week. And I'm always like, at the end, I go, did I say anything? What? You said what you said. This is who you are. But then you go, well, I mean, obviously, I don't want to make someone upset. We're protecting ourselves to this one person who's going to go, what the fuck? And you're like, I don't know if that's even a good way to live.
But you don't even need them because they don't. If they're not gonna be your fan regardless, then that's not for them.
Right.
They have different
even
tastes.
So, like, people used to have radio shows and then they would go home.
Sure.
There was no thought of like, did I say the right thing?
Yeah, you're live on air.
Yeah.
There's no fixing it. So you have few podcasts. When did you get into because I know you obviously taped your special with Betches who sponsored it. How does that
Betches
work?
co-produced. The whole idea was like, I'll make it, I'll try and sell it with Betches as my teammate.
Yeah.
If it sells, Betches and I will split the
profits. Nice.
And they'll help me promote it. And if they don't, and if it doesn't sell, Betches will promote it on my YouTube. And I was like basically I was like giving myself a bottom line, like a backup
plan, right?
I didn't want to be just a guy with a YouTube special. I wanted to be able to get more eyes, see more people.
100%, of course.
So the backup plan was, Betches is going to promote it, and that would have been great.
100%, yeah.
Now, it sells to Netflix. Betches is involved. They, and they're promoting it because it's theirs too.
Sure.
And it was very, and then I do my podcast with Betches. So like
how did you end up with Betches?
So I have a podcast called J Train Podcast. I started it like 11, 12 years ago.
Wow. You're like an early adopter.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Well, I love
comedy.
Well, yeah, and I love talk radio. Like I grew up on talk radio, WEI in Boston, like sports talk. And I was listening to podcasts on like my iPod Nano. Like when I was selling life insurance, I would go in the morning.
So you're side hustling already when you got into the insurance business. You're like had side projects that you're working on.
No. I was listening to podcasts.
Okay.
At work, at the gym.
On the Nano.
On the Nano. I'd download radio shows in 15-minute increments.
Sure.
Podcasting was like a thing on your Nano.
Starting, right.
And I was like, what is this? So
Sure.
I started downloading these podcasts that were radio shows, and I was listening to them and enjoying them. And I was like, this fits into my day. So how is this going to fit into someone else's day? So when I was doing, when I started doing comedy, I started writing for different websites and putting myself out there on a weekly basis because I was like, okay, the internet, I remember when I was at work during lunch, I'd read someone's article. So maybe someone could read my article.
Right.
So I started putting stuff out on a weekly basis in exchange for.
So you're like a blog.
I would basically submit.
Yeah.
The blog was like a punchline at the time.
Sure.
Like I used to make fun of people. Who'd be
right.
Here's my dating blog, which ended up for some people it worked. And,
Sure.
And I was like, I want to go somewhere where they have an audience that they can like present me as comedian Jared Freid.
Right.
So I started writing for like Bro Bible, Total Frat Move, Betches,
Sure.
all these.
I probably
like,
read some of your stuff.
Absolutely, it was
back
out there.
in the day.
Yeah, and I would do like a lot of listicles and a lot of like just fun ideas, and you got to do whatever you want. Like and so I was doing that, and then I approached Total Frat Move. I was like, they had 1 million Twitter followers. So
Wow.
I went on a bachelor party to Austin, and I DM'd over Twitter one of the people that was writing there, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Can I meet with you?
Sure.
Met with them, and I was like, I want to do a podcast. They were like, what's a podcast? I was like, perfect.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
So then I went back to New York. Stand Up New York was starting a
Studio?
podcast studio.
Yeah.
I got a promoter. I'm gonna be the host, and you guys, and we'll do it. So we started the TFM podcast, and I was basically teaching that audience what a podcast was. Like every week they'd post it, and then it started doing pretty well in the beginning. And it started as I was going to do like the news, like Howard Stern does. But then we started at the end. I was like, hey, and if anyone has a question, send it in. And people kept sending dating questions because they knew I was dealing with dating. I'm in my 20s. I'm out there, trying to meet people. So then we started answering the emails, and I was getting so many emails that became the show.
Right.
And then over the course of time, podcasts got more popular. TFM was like, we want the name back.
Yeah.
Which I understood. And I was like, well, give me the RSS feed. You guys take the name, and we'll go our separate ways amicably.
Yeah.
So I renamed it J-Train Podcast. And right around then, women started listening to more podcasts because of Serial.
Yeah.
Murder mystery podcasts. So that kind of brought women in because sports talk radio is a male demographic. So, and all the male emails were kind of like boring to me. They were like, I met a girl, how do I fuck? And you're like, yeah, of course.
yeah.
So then
to that point.
Right. And then women started writing in. At the beginning, it was so weird to have a woman write in that we had like a drop. It would be like a guitar riff with like chick email, you know?
So funny.
Yeah, and then so many were coming in that we were like, stop playing the drop. We're like,
Your whole podcast would have just been guitar riff.
It would have been hauled the whole time. And we started answering emails from women, and then I would have guests on every episode. I still do. And then the Betches, I met them through Jewish geography of a certain kind. I was introduced, I was on family vacation, and one of the moms there knew another mom who had a son who was putting on shows and wanted to do stuff in DC. He knew the Betches because his sister was in their sorority, introduced us. So that's kind of how they came into my life. And then I had him on as guests, and they were like, we want to start a podcast. I was like, no problem. I set them up, sent one email, and they started their podcast at Stand Up New York Lab.
Yeah.
So then then I'd go on as a guest on theirs, and they'd come on mine. And then one day they were like, hey, we want to like kind of blow this up. And they were like, we want to start like a network of a certain kind, and we're bringing our show to our network, and we want to start a new show where it's a modern dating show that talks about dating in the modern times from the guy and girl perspective. And that's kind of where You Up came in.
Nice.
And that was like 6 years ago, coming up on the 6-year anniversary. And, that was amazing for me because I always knew J-Train was a show that like women would love.
Yeah.
But you can't, it's tough to get people, it's tough to get people to believe in a podcast, especially at that time.
Right.
When Betches is saying, hey, we're going to have this podcast about dating, the audience is going to listen.
Yeah.
And it ended up being the best thing that could ever happen to me because I'm in this space where I'm allowed to be honest about dating. I knew how to talk about it better because that's part of it with podcasting. Like, I'm a guy talking about dating. It can sound icky. It can sound bad. And you have to care for the people that would really... I do think you have to care about people who are
giving
going through
advice
it.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're honest and give advice first, and the funny will come.
Yeah.
Then that's a better show. And so we started talking about, and right from the beginning, people really loved it. And so then Betches and our relationship grows from there, and
So how does all of this affect your personal dating life? Because I feel like a lot of, I would assume that a lot of people who are writing in also might want to get your attention, right? Like girl writing in like, hey, how do I date Jared Freid? And
but you've
like,
been at my show, and the energy isn't a bunch of women who came to fuck me.
Sure.
At all, in my opinion. You saw that.
I've seen it.
Much
I love it.
More familiar.
They're fun.
They're fun, and they're like groups of women that are like doing really well, and successful, and maybe one person at the table is like, I can't fucking figure out this dating thing.
Yeah.
So that's been like a great byproduct of everything. It hasn't. Listen, when you're 25, you're like, I would love a bunch of chicks to come to my show, and you sound like an idiot. this worked out in the way it should. It's hard
Sure.
with my personal life because I want to protect my, I was in a long-term relationship and that ended, and then you get out of that, and then
That was like 2 years ago, a year ago,
3 years ago, and now you have to undo that, and
Sure.
you have to also undo that for the people who, I'm nobody, but there's people that care, just like with
Right.
the social media, like
you have your
have to-
own people that's always looking out for you.
Right,
Yeah.
and then you've also I'm very much like on stories, putting out my life. I'm here with this
Sure.
person.
Yeah, you're very transparent.
yeah. So it's like going towards personal life now. I'm a little more
Guarded?
guarded, but also like slower. You know,
Sure.
the idea of like putting someone on social media, like I have to care for like their
Yeah. That's like
needs.
asking somebody out twice. It's like, do you want to be with me? And then it's like, do you want to be content?
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because it is content.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in the same way I make fun of myself, I'm gonna make fun of the relationship. I'm gonna be, and
Yeah. It's asking a lot of
It's a
person.
cosign. It's a cosigning your life.
totally.
I think it'd be easier to co-sign on a house than it
I
would
think
be
so.
like, yeah, it's like if you like, I think about my wife and like embarrassing sex stuff. I'm like, I feel like this will be something. Like I run
Right.
every joke by her, but it's still like,
Yeah.
every time she could be like, no, we're not.
Yeah, once you sign
Right.
up to date a comedian, you know that some of it is going to be fodder.
Well, also, it's not even just that. It's like the honesty of it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm more honest on a podcast than I can be in my own life sometimes.
100%.
So it's like it's easier because you're like, how do you feel about this?
Yeah.
And you go on and talk about it. Then that thing happens in your relationship. Now
Yeah.
my opinion is there.
Yeah.
I
Right.
remember I did a show in Nashville.
like a
and-
stand-up show.
stand-up show, late night show. It was like empty, and there was this woman in the front with her boyfriend. The boyfriend was like unbreakable. He just seemed
Sure.
so mad to be there. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
go,
He's like, my girlfriend
He's
dragged
so
me to
angry.
this
Which
show.
probably with your fan demographic, that might happen. Does that happen?
Sure.
it happens.
A lot of
It's
boyfriend
always-
probably hates
Yeah.
you.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's less hatred and more like
Jealousy.
Who is this guy?
Yeah,
It's not
jealousy.
Theo Vaughn.
Right.
Right.
Why
It's
does
not
my
Theo-
girlfriend like him so
Yeah.
much?
It's not the
Right,
Rogan crew.
Also, you assume that I'm pandering to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
You assume that I'm
Interesting.
like must be saying things that aren't true, or
Yeah.
how could he make something funny that I can't?
Yeah.
Is really the thought.
Sure.
And I haven't heard of him because men just think they're the arbiter of comedy.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Every single man.
right.
Yes.
And so I'm on stage and this guy is just not happy, and I'm talking with them a little bit, and I'm like, "What's up, dude?"
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck it. He's like, every time we get in an argument, she's always like, Jared says. And I'm probably
That's
telling
so funny.
exactly what he's doing.
Sure.
I've told her the answers to the
Oh
quiz.
my
Sure.
God.
And and I laughed at it, and it is funny, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget it. I was in a fight with my ex. We're having this argument, and she was like, "And you said," and I was like, "Fuck that guy," like
my
it
God.
came back to
Like,
get me.
She called back to you in your discussion.
You said on this podcast that
Right,
you
right,
believe
right.
this, and I'm like, "Well, fuck him,"
yeah.
Oh my God.
Doesn't apply at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean it for everyone else but me.
Sure,
But
sure.
it's like, no. So that, I think that's harder in a relationship of like, because I do want the normal things. I do want to move on and get married and have kids. And I'm like, as the years go by, you get older and older. You're like,
When is it gonna happen?
yeah, or like, when am I going to stop being afraid of doing the next
Right.
thing?
Do you
It's not-
feel right now you're guarded and like your parents? Like I know in the Jewish community, a lot of people like really care about like having a partner that's culturally Jewish as well. Do you feel that way?
Oh
Or you-
yeah. I think, it's irrational. It's not right.
I mean,
you know-
I think it doesn't matter if you feel like most comfortable with someone who's also like shares your views. Then I think it makes sense.
Well, I think of it mathematically.
Yeah.
More likely to have a lot in common with someone who's also
100%.
Jewish, grew up outside of a major city.
Sure.
Like I went to summer camp. All these things I don't have are like non-starters.
Right, right, right.
So I'm playing the numbers game if I really want to take emotion out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think to a Jewish mother where a Jewish mother's hard, and I think any mother is hard.
Yeah.
Anyone that's different from them is kind of like,
Hard.
why are you not dating someone like
sure.
me?
Yes.
But do
As
you
fucked
date?
up as that sounds.
Do you date outside the Jewish faith?
I generally haven't in a long time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're just like trying to find the person right now. You're in
Right.
a point in your life where you're like, I would like to settle down, and I don't want to waste someone's time.
I don't
So
want
if
to
I'm
waste my
do-
own time.
and my time. Exactly.
I'm not looking to answer for someone else. I'm being
Sure.
selfish in the sense.
No, that's
like,
perfect.
Yeah, like
because then you're also respecting them because you're like
I
it's not
hope
gonna go
so.
anywhere. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'm not. Again, I don't want to make myself sound like a hero. I'm not like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm, a piece of shit too.
Yeah,
but
of course.
the idea of like, hey, we should go on a date, and then I've had women will DM me, we should go on a date. I know you said you wanted Jewish. I know
Yeah.
you said you live in New York
But
City.
I'm Muslim from Bangladesh, and it might work out.
Right, and then
Yeah.
I go,
That
and
was
you
me.
feel like a dick.
Yeah.
I gotta go
DM'd her. I was
Shafi.
like,
I don't
we
want.
should really date.
Yeah, Shafi. I'm sorry to tell you.
I'm into women.
I think we will. Yeah. So I think let's move over to the Patreon.
Yeah, let's
we
do
got some
that.
other questions for you.
Yeah.
We want to promote the special. It's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Let's
Where
do it.
can people-
Yeah.
what's it
Netflix,
called? Yeah.
37 and single. It's out there. It's
So
on,
your birthday was after? Because you're
Well, I
38
taped
now.
in December.
Oh, right.
So
right.
it taped in December. It didn't
you
come
can
together.
Yeah, you can switch it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah,
couple
congrats
more
on the special.
questions for you.
Thank
The
you.
special's very funny. Go check it out. Moving over to Patreon for we got some. That's where the fun stuff is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have
Good
so
stuff.
Yeah.
many new members coming through. So thank you so much for the support. Find the pod on Wednesday. This is gonna come out Wednesday, and
Instagram,
we
TikTok.
we have podcasts coming out every Wednesday now.
Every Wednesday, yeah.
on all the platforms. Thank you again for tuning
And
in.
we'll see you on Patreon.
Patreon.